And welcome to another week of Challenge Gary. This week is a cracker. What came back was people had a lot of stuff still in the store cupboard, i.e. tins and dried goods. So I'm going to marry that with an incredible cut called brisket. Brisket is a muscle from the front end of the cow, the chest of the cow, and it works really hard, hence why it's so tough. But the flavour that's made from that hard work in this is incredible, and it works really well with things like spice and marinades. So the first thing I actually want to do is to make a rub. And again, back to the challenge, people were asking what's in your store cupboard, and I basically had a little rummage through the cupboard, my sort of spice drawer, and come up with a few spices. Again, it's something that you could do anything with. You know, I've got some smoked paprika, a little bit of chili powder, a little bit of cinnamon, some mixed herbs, and a little bit of Cajun spice. So that moves us on to our beef. So all I want to do with the beef is just lightly score. And there is a little bit of fat on here which I'm going to leave on. But I'm leaving that on because it is quite a lean cut. So what I want to do now, and this is important, I want to keep one hand dry and the other hand is going to be for touching and rubbing in the spices of the rub. So you want to keep one hand free and clean. You want to try and get every little kind of nook and cranny of the rub in. Again, if you've got the time, it's actually worthwhile letting this marinate for a couple of hours. I mean, it's a couple of day process for this cut, but it's certainly worth it. So I'm just going to move this out of the way and change board, wash my hands. What I want to do now is I want to create a kind of base for the beef to cook. And this beef's going to cook probably between 5 or 6 hours depending on the temperature of your oven. I try and set it at 120, which probably adds an extra hour or an hour and a half onto the cooking time. You can cook it as high as 160, but what you want to try and avoid is anything drying out here. So I try my best just to do it long and slow. So planning is essential, you don't want to rush it. So I just want to take about 3 onions. And these onions are going to form the basis of the whole dish as well. So any flavour or liquid that we lose from the beef is going to be caught in the bed of onions. If you were to put the beef directly onto a tray, the chances are it's in direct contact with the heat of the tray, and we want to try and avoid that. So we're trying to keep as much moisture in here as possible. So what I always do is take a piece of parchment, and what the parchment will do, it will allow me that I can get the tin foil really tight without the tin foil sticking. And because sometimes tin foil can stick to whatever it is you're cooking, especially if it's been in the oven a while. But it's just that extra layer that just helps keep in that moisture. And then just create a nice tight seal with the foil. And I'll get my oven preset at 120. So this will be for tomorrow, and I've got one in the oven now. So before we start onto the chilli, what I wanted to do was to get some rice on. I've got an absolute foolproof way of cooking rice. I've found over the years that a lot of people struggle with rice, and the problem is with rice is it's full of starch. So if you've got it in a bubbly pot on the stove, it acidulates everything, and then it becomes starchy, and you end up with a kind of pot of glue. But this is a great method and super easy, super quick. So I'm going to take some chopped onions or shallots, just depends what you've got. I just want to finely dice them. I'm going to pop those onions into a pot. So I'm going to take a coffee cup, and I find a coffee cup is a perfect 4 portions. So just fill the coffee cup and pop that in with the onions. The next thing I want to do is to take a stock cube, and I just want to break that up. So break up a stock cube, a little bit of oil, or you could put in a little bit of butter. And then what I want to do is to add 1.5 cups of water. And from there I just want to bring that just under the boil. So you don't want to actually cook the rice on the stove here, you just want to get it hot. And what we're actually going to do is we're going to cook it in the oven. So we're going to bake it in the oven at 180 in a fan assisted oven for about 17 minutes. From there I'm going to pop a little bit of greaseproof paper and then a lid, and then I'm going to pop that in the oven at 180 for 17 minutes. So that's us now ready to actually move on to the chili. We've got the rice cooking in the oven. The next thing, or the first thing I want to put in the chili to kick us off is our onions. And with this sort of style of chili, especially when the beef's going to play such an important role, I want to keep everything quite chunky and big and rustic. You know, I want people to see each and every individual ingredient. I think a lot of people think that chili is made with mince, and which is fine, but I think this is a much better way to do it. So we've given the onions about 5 minutes, and they're just starting to sort of sweat down. There's no colour at all in them, there's no colour on the bottom of the pan. At this stage here, what I want to do is add our spice. So we're going to use the same spices as we did before. So our smoked paprika, and that's going to give this chili a real kind of smokiness. Our hot chili powder, a tiny touch of cinnamon, a little bit of Cajun spice just because I had it, and some dried mixed herbs. And you instantly get that amazing smell. So there's not a lot of heat in this pan, probably about halfway temperature wise. Next thing I want to do is add our chopped peppers. We take a few rosemary sprigs. And I always tend to add garlic in at kind of later stage, because if garlic burns, there's no way of escaping it. The dish is ruined. But we're starting to get amazing smells, lots going on. Next thing I want to do is add some tomato puree. And tomato puree is going to give it that richness, and it also helps thicken the sauce as well. And then next I'm going to add the tomatoes. And that is the basis of our sauce so far. So next thing we want to do is take a look at that amazing beef that I had done earlier. So when the beef's like this, you get a couple of options. You can what's called pull it. So you can get a couple of forks and separate the strands, which gives you a kind of stringy, sort of tight consistency. What I'm going to do, I'm actually going to dice it, because I quite like the chunks, and I think this particular dish works really well when you've got bigger bits. And I'm deliberately cutting them in different sizes. What we want to do now is make use of all that flavour, all those onions. And then I just want to push the flavour out of the onions. You'll be amazed at the amount of flavour that people fling in the bin because they don't do this. Really important to press all that flavour in. And that has totally transformed that dish. Laura, that's good. We have got dinner sorted. Right, so the next thing I want to do here is I just want to cook it out. I just want to give, I mean, we're probably only talking about 20 minutes, but it's not a lot of time at all. So kidney beans have been opened and washed, and again they're going to go in right at the end because canned kidney beans are good to go. All you want to do is heat them up. So you don't want to have them in too long or they start to break down. So we're going to let that cook, and while that's cooking I'm going to make some guacamole. So chili's working away, shouldn't be too long. The hard work's been done with the amazing brisket. Just waiting on the rice, which is a few seconds away. Whilst we're waiting on that, I thought I would make a really quick guacamole. You can buy guacamole, I don't think it's ever as good as making it on your own. And another little tip, if you have avocados that are not quite ready, I tend just to leave them in a little bucket of rice. And what happens with that is the rice will ripen the avocados and actually help hold them as well. And that's a little buzzer. So with the rice, let's have a look. The other good thing is when you do rice like this, you can actually leave it. You can leave it in the pot, and it'll be quite happy, just sitting there and staying hot with beautiful fluffy rice. So I'm just going to pop our little paper back on the top, pop the lid on. And another really important thing is when you're cooking with pots in the oven, is you need to cover the handle with a cloth because you will automatically shovel the pan from the handle. So I'm just going to pop that out of the way to resist temptation and move on to our guacamole. So first thing I need is some finely chopped chilies. So avocados, best way to do it, safest way to do it is cut in half until you hit the stone, twist, and then with a little tap you can pop the stone out. And the next thing I want to do is just crush them. Right, so chilies, lime, avocado, salt and pepper. And I don't want to crush the avocado all the way down, I want to try and keep some texture. The next ingredient is coriander. Again, I love coriander, and make sure when you use coriander you use a whole lot because the stalks or the stems of the coriander are brilliant to use. Just going to pop that in. So chili's about 5 minutes away. Our guacamole's ready, rice is ready. I just want to add the remainder of my coriander into that chili. And I'm going to put a little bit of parsley as well. So we're ready to serve. This is the last of our little wraps. Again, I always like to put a little bit of colour, a bit of heat. And all I've got is a drying pan on full blast. You can still see everything's nice and chunky, really rich. So there we have the amazing Scotch brisket. Turned it into one of the tastiest chilies I've ever had. But the real winner here is that flavour of the brisket, and the texture is just incredible. It's worthwhile just making that little bit of extra effort. It's a day's planning, but it's definitely worth it. So with our chili, we had the easiest rice in the world and some lovely homemade guacamole. So thanks to the Scotch Kitchen, and hopefully see you again soon. Bye bye.